The film opens with a glimpse into the life of Jude Rodriguez, a carefree and musically gifted young man who resides with his loving yet eccentric family. We witness his father Dominic, a stern and traditional man who values discipline and hard work. Jude's mother Maria is a free-spirited, warm-hearted woman who wholeheartedly supports Jude's artistic pursuits. Jude's older sister Andrea holds a special place in the family's heart and is the source of immense joy and love. Jude has an insane love for marine life, but he lacks confidence and social skills, because of which he is a laughingstock for most people, especially his father. Jude's family wants to set him up with a girl, but romance does not tempt Jude yet. Jude, as a naive person, can easily be fooled. Due to this, he ends up getting fired because of his work colleagues who alter his slideshow. After facing sheer embarrassment, Jude darts towards his home. As the film proceeds, we get to know that Jude is an incredibly honest man who has a strong sense of morality. Jude's family has to go to Goa for a funeral, so they leave Jude's sister behind to take care of the shop. Jude declines his family's offer to join them on their journey multiple times. Maria finally convinces Jude by offering to buy the saltwater aquarium he has been asking for a long time. They are on their way to Goa when they meet a stranger who asks them for a lift. As soon as he mentions fish, Jude bores him with his extensive knowledge of aquatic life and global warming. The stranger gets out of the car because he can't withstand Jude. As they pass through a checkpoint, the police take Jude's pet goldfish, because it is illegal to bring anything of that sort beyond that checkpoint. This is just a glimpse into Jude's life, and how he feels a gap between himself and others. As they visit their relatives in Goa, Jude's aunt narrates the history of his ancestors to him. At the gravesite, when everybody is praying for the recently deceased, Jude notices a strange girl who is playing guitar by another grave. He encounters the girl again when he visits the beach, where she is with her dog named Figo. He is having lunch at a cafe when he runs into the girl again, as she is the waitress there, but their interaction pisses the girl off, because of the fact that Jude is a perfectionist and wants his sandwich equally toasted from both sides. Dominic wants to vacate the tenants that are currently living in the house right next to them, and he wants to achieve this by sending Jude to their house. As Jude proceeds to list the state rules to the current tenant, he finds out that the man to whom he was stating the rules is the father of that same mysterious girl. As soon as Jude watches her enter the driveway on her bike, he flees the scene, because of how unpleasant his past interactions have been with her. The next morning, Dominic breaks into the tenant's house when they leave, and he steals their main fuse. This is his means to the end of evicting the stubborn father-daughter duo, who have overstayed their welcome as his tenants. As a result, when Crystal, the mysterious girl, and her father Sebastian return, they learn that there is no power at their house. Sebastian is well aware of the fact that their landlord Dominic is the culprit behind this mishap. For their revenge, Crystal calls her band and starts playing heavy music right on the doorstep of Jude's house. Jude films the whole scene from his window while Dominic calls the police on them. Crystal offers the police officers some beers and befriends them. They blast loud music the entire night in front of Jude's house as their sweet revenge. Dominic wants Jude to befriend Crystal, so Jude heads to the cafe where Crystal works. He offers her some cricket statistics he knows off the top of his head, which he believes will be very helpful for Sebastian, as he usually bets most of his money on cricket matches. After this strange gesture of extending the hand of friendship, Jude leaves. As he is walking down the road, Crystal asks him to stop and hop on her bike. As they ride through the city, Jude gets a little scared, due to the speed at which Crystal is riding the bike. However, deep down he trusts Crystal, and that is why he does not try to hop off the bike. Crystal takes Jude to a neuroscience specialty center. There, they find Sebastian begging the doctors for a room, so that he can give his music sessions to the mentally ill. After not getting a room, Sebastian proceeds to the backyard of the center, and Jude also joins him as he attempts to brighten up lives through music. When Jude returns home, Dominic inquires about where he was the whole day. Jude tells Dominic that he was in the company of Dr. Sebastian at his house. Dominic is curious to hear about Sebastian being a doctor, so Jude elaborates that Sebastian used to be a psychologist. As Jude spends more time with Sebastian, he shares more knowledge about his methods of finding cricket statistics. Sebastian later gives his diagnosis about Jude to Crystal, inferring that he has a psychological ailment known as Asperger's syndrome. People with this condition have poor social skills, which explains why Jude acts the way he mostly does. Crystal begins her journey to help Jude with his social skills. She teaches him how to communicate with people, and complicates Jude's eyesight, after which Jude feels an unknown tingling in his heart. Jude likes having Crystal around, but due to his antisocial personality, he always shoots her down when she wants to spend time with him. One morning, Jude wakes up and sees Crystal downstairs, seeking his permission to climb up his window. Jude finds this notion completely ridiculous and shuts his window in her face. Nevertheless, Crystal climbs the window with all her might, and forcefully lets herself into Jude's room. She looks around Jude's room and touches everything, which makes Jude feel uncomfortable. She picks up his camera and touches the notes on the wall. But when she picks up Jude's video diary, he quickly snatches it back from her hands. Crystal invites Jude to a party and instructs him to meet her by the cafe at 8. As she leaves his room, she steals his video diaries and climbs down the roof. Crystal gets ready for the party, and so does Jude. But after recording his video diary, he says to himself that he does not know anyone there, and therefore stands Crystal up. She, on the other hand, all dolled up, furiously waits for Jude. When Jude doesn't show up, she heads back home. After stumbling across Jude's house, she screams at Jude and calls him a coward for not showing up. Her anger completely takes over her, and she throws a stone at his window. Taking note of this unhealthy behavior, Sebastian enters the scene and escorts Crystal back to their house. Sebastian advises Crystal to start taking her medicine. Crystal complains that the medicines make her lazy and puts her in a mood where she does not feel capable to do anything, and she can't even practice her music. As her anger rises, she taunts Sebastian for sitting idle and consuming alcohol all day long. She sits in the bathtub in her bathroom. She wants to smoke, but has run out of cigarettes. Sebastian knocks on the door, urging Crystal to take her medicines, but she doesn't comply with his persuasion. When she can no longer handle this feeling of unease that is growing inside of her, she walks out of the bathroom, ingests the medicines, and heads upstairs to the roof, along with her pillows. She looks up at the moon with tears swelling up in her eyes, in a feeling of surrender and helplessness. The next day, Sebastian goes to the roof to give Crystal her morning coffee, but he finds her missing. Jude also stumbles across Sebastian and asks about the whereabouts of Crystal. Sebastian has decided that it would be better if he was not friends with her. Jude does not care and is adamant about staying Crystal's friend. Jude comes to the realization that he is certain about something for the first time in his life, so he is not willing to let her go, as she is the only thing he has ever been sure of. Jude hops onto Sebastian's bike and heads to the cafe to look for Crystal. At the cafe, Crystal unleashes all of her anger on her bandmates and screams at them. She tears apart the chord list that took them 4 months to make, and to top it off, she gets so mad that she grabs the guitar from the lead guitarist and slams it onto the ground, leaving it completely shattered. Crystal runs off to the beach, and when Jude tries to follow her, Sebastian suggests that he should wait for her to come back on her own. Crystal apologizes to her bandmates and hugs all of them when she finally does come back. Sebastian alerts her about someone who has been waiting to talk to her for a really long time. Jude apologizes to Crystal for not showing up at the party, and she also feels guilty for throwing a stone at his window pane. Jude keeps his digital diary of the 17th now, and in that diary, he mentions that he has 3 friends: Crystal, Dr. Sebastian, and Figo. Jude and Crystal go to the beach together, and Crystal wants to help Jude get rid of his hydrophobia. Jude's hydrophobia originated during his childhood, as he nearly drowned in the ocean once, and he remembers the event vividly. Crystal takes Jude to a pool party and then to a picnic. At night, she sneaks into Jude's room while wearing a disguise. She wakes him up and forces him to go out with her. Jude tries to explain the complexities of his strict timetable, but Crystal ignores everything and pulls him outside. As they ride on Crystal's bike at 1 in the morning, the light of the moon shines on them. Crystal takes Jude to a wall because she wants to vandalize it with her spray paints through graffiti. Jude reminds her countless times that this is illegal and that they will have to pay for the property damage charges. But Crystal argues that Jude is just plain boring. Suddenly, a cop car pulls up and tells them to stop. Crystal is ready to brawl initially, but they manage to escape to their houses, where their families deal with the police officers on their behalf. During dinner, Dominic asks Jude about his involvement with Crystal's vandalism project. Jude has acquired a new perspective and replies that this is called graffiti and that it is a form of art. Dominic commands Jude to not stay in Crystal and Sebastian's company for so long. Jude demands to know the reason behind this, but Dominic simply expects his son to obey him blindly. Jude continues fighting, insisting that they are his friends and that Crystal is helping him. Dominic sarcastically sheds light on the fact that her help almost led to him being arrested. Jude doesn't want to give up on Crystal because of how special she finds him. Dominic continues to assert his authority over Jude and orders him to find a new job, as now as he is 28 years old. He sends Jude to advocate to Sousa's office. Crystal also shows a new job opportunity to Jude as an oceanic research assistant. She tells him that a new company is looking for employees and it would be perfect for him. Jude is apprehensive of this because of Dominic, so Crystal gives him the idea of working there in secret. Jude is also concerned about not being able to clear the interview because of his struggle with communication, but Crystal believes that he is just a pessimist. Moving forward, Crystal is more determined than ever to help Jude. She supports him in getting rid of his hydrophobia by taking him into a swimming pool and constantly holding his hand. She teaches him to be more confident amongst people and acquire better social skills. She trains him on how to maintain eye contact and shake people's hands firmly. She goes scuba diving with him, which eliminates most of his hydrophobia. During his interview, he still can't maintain eye contact, and this causes him great disappointment. As he's leaving the office, he sees a board about ocean acidification. He pulls out a binder and dictates to Crystal that ocean acidification is the reason why jellyfish are perishing. One of the men who was taking his interview overhears his thesis and he's impressed. Disappointed, Jude heads over to his house, and there, his father confronts him about the job. Jude not getting the job was no surprise for Dominic. Jude mentions to Dominic that Crystal helped him to prepare for this interview, and that she even taught him swimming. Jude learning how to swim is a big surprise for both Dominic and Maria. Dominic angrily screams at Jude for defying his orders not to hang out with that madman Sebastian and his daughter. Dominic warns Jude that he will be sending him off to Dubai, but that idea doesn't appeal to Jude at all. He wants to stay in Goa, learn music, and join Crystal's band. After hearing about this, both of his parents get extremely disappointed, and Maria thinks that she made a mistake when she supported Jude's friendship with Crystal. Jude confides in Sebastian and Crystal about not wanting to go to Dubai. Sebastian offers Jude to have a chat with Dominic, but Jude disapproves of this because he knows his father. Suddenly, Crystal comes up with a sinister but funny idea. She hints that Jude should run away from his house. Sebastian immediately warns Jude that it's a very bad idea and recommends that he should not pay any heed to Crystal's irrational ideas. But Jude thinks that it's a marvelous idea, as when he leaves his house, his family will tremendously miss him, and as a result, they will agree to anything. Crystal further discusses the details of the plan. They decide to leave the next day for a wedding in Malvern. Jude quickly gets to his home and packs his stuff in a duffel bag. He heads downstairs and sees a crowded red van waiting for him. He quickly sits in it and departs on his journey to Malvern. On the other hand, Dominic calls Andrea to ask her about business back home and discovers that she owes someone $30,000. So Dominic prepares to go back home for 2 days to check up on work. Maria reports to Dominic about the advocate's arrival, who has come bearing the news that all the paperwork is ready, which will kick out their current tenants, Dr. Sebastian and Crystal. During this conversation, Maria heads upstairs to check up on Jude, but to her surprise, he's nowhere to be found. She finds the message Jude wrote for her on the mirror, which says that his family should not look for him, as he will already be long gone when they get the message. Maria breaks the news of Jude's departure to Dominic, and they rush to Sebastian's house. Sebastian gives them a clue about Jude's location. He might only be 100 kilometers away. He also tries to convince them that this trip would be beneficial for him, as he is going there with his friends. To make his case stronger, he plays one of Jude's digital diaries, where he admits to facing difficulty in recognizing people's emotions. He does not understand happiness, sorrow, suspicion, anger, and fear. He finds emotions even more complex, because sometimes one has to fake emotions. Sebastian explains to Dominic and Maria that Jude has to struggle every day, and the outcome of those struggles is what makes him so different. Dominic furiously accuses Sebastian of calling Jude crazy. In response, Sebastian tells them both that he thinks Jude has Asperger's syndrome, which is a neurological condition. This means that he has mild autism. Dominic argues that people like Jude don't have any Asperger's condition, they are just lazy. Sebastian clarifies that Jude isn't lazy, he just doesn't have the ability to understand people's emotions. Jude is not able to catch on to body language, sarcasm, or humor. He pushes Dominic to stop lying to himself and accept the fact that Jude is different. Maria asks Sebastian if there is any treatment available, but Sebastian believes that no treatment is required. He explains to them that different people have to be treated differently by giving them Crystal's example. He connects Crystal's anger that they saw the other day to a mental condition called bipolar disorder. In this condition, her mind keeps switching between only two emotions, joy and despair. The abnormalities between Jude and Crystal are the only factor in why they are friends. Sebastian comforts both of the parents, filled with disdain, by assuring them that the world is not perfect. During the very happening wedding, Crystal approaches Jude, who is standing in a corner away from everybody else. Jude had never met someone in his life who could understand him. But with Crystal around, it's as if she understands him, so Jude trusts her. They bond over their shared love for music and art, gradually developing a deep connection that transcends words. Jude's admiration for Crystal transforms into a profound and soul-stirring love, filling his heart with emotions he has never experienced before. Crystal gives Jude a musical instrument and nudges him to perform with them. But Jude is hesitant, as he does not trust himself to be able to play a musical instrument, and confesses to Crystal that he doesn't know or understand music. Crystal reassures him by drawing similarities between music and mathematics. She points out how dance also relies on a number sequence, such as the likes of the 2-4-8 pattern. Her way of making dance relatable and intelligible to Jude shows clearly how much she cares about him and his happiness. They are interrupted as the hostess announces the name of Crystal's band, the Beatles Cafe, and welcomes them to the stage. As they are about to perform, Crystal calls Jude to the stage. Crystal, with her pleasant yet powerful voice, starts singing, and the whole band starts performing. Jude is hesitant at first, but slowly he also begins to groove to the music, as he notices that he is responding to the catchy beat. As the band stops playing, Jude doesn't, and everybody loves the music that he's playing. Back at home, a depressed Dominic recalls the incidents of Jude's childhood where he gave Jude a basic task, and he did it literally, for which he often got punished by Dominic. He realizes that what he did to Jude was wrong. After the wedding, Crystal and Jude go over to the beach, where Crystal with her marvelous red dress is dancing at the shore. She calls Jude to join her, but he is reluctant. She joins Jude and gives him some insight into her way of life, which is to do everything, as life is extremely short. Therefore, one should do every idiotic thing there is to do. She is dancing and swaying with him when he compliments her for being straight up gorgeous. Crystal questions Jude whether he loves her, but he says that he does not know. Crystal tries to kiss Jude, but Jude runs away. When they get back home, Jude's family becomes really supportive, and Dominic even offers to throw a party. Jude comes to Crystal's house to invite her to the party, but he finds his digital diary and learns that Crystal stole them. He also stumbles across Dr. Sebastian's research about him having mild autism. Crystal and Sebastian enter the room, as they've just come back from the hospital, because Crystal is not well. But Jude doesn't show any compassion, and he lashes out at her for stealing his stuff, for which Crystal doesn't have a proper explanation. Sebastian answers his interrogation with the reality that he's different from everybody else. That's when Jude understands his parents' strange behavior, and this enrages him even more, as he calls Sebastian a liar and screams at him. Sebastian stops this by bringing up the fact that Crystal is not okay, as last night she swallowed a lot of pills, and Sebastian had to drag her to the hospital. That day, Jude makes a new entry in his digital diary about his recent discovery about himself. Everybody is preparing for the party, when suddenly Dominic falls into the pool and starts to drown. Jude jumps into the pool, regardless of his hydrophobia, and pulls Dominic out. He tries to give him CPR, but unfortunately, Dominic passes away. Jude reaches out to Crystal to support him in his journey to Cochin, as her companionship gives him confidence, which reflects how much she means to him. But she is having a bad episode, and has locked herself in the bathroom, so he leaves without seeing the love of his life. Jude starts managing his father's shop, and becomes an expert at it, but he notices that a slip for 25,000 rupees is missing. Upon confronting Andrea, he finds out that she gave that money to her boyfriend, who lied to her by saying that he needed a loan for an emergency, but never gave it back. Jude embraces her nevertheless. A few days later, Jude receives a letter from Crystal saying that she is going to Shimla to be a voluntary doctor. Jude is offered his dream job in Goa, and he reads Crystal's congratulatory letter while traveling, which prompts him to think about her when he reaches Goa, and imagine that she is always with him. She expects him to take her bike for a spin every now and then, and make the most of his freedom. At his new job, Jude finally meets new people, with whom he communicates successfully. He has fun with his friends, and finally buys the aquarium he dreamed about. He is strolling on the beach after a cricket match one day when he sees Figo running to a woman he identifies as Crystal. The words from Crystal's letter ring in his mind, giving him hope that love will eventually come to him. This fantasy seems closer to reality, now that Crystal is back in his life. As she pets Figo, he thinks of how she turned his life upside down. He recalls every moment she taught him something, their bickering, and how she turned him into the fully functioning and happy man that he is today. None of this would have been possible if she weren't by his side. He smiles from ear to ear at the most beautiful sight he has laid eyes on. Crystal plays with Figo without a care in the world, while Sebastian and Jude look over her with fondness. Jude slowly walks over to her and takes her hand into his, while never moving his eyes from her for even a second. He shakes her hand while maintaining eye contact, the first and the most important thing that she ever taught him.